for the second time with Wyoming gun owners, joined today right now with my brother Chris Dorr. And we're the guys who've been working, as you know, to advance, all of us have been, to fight for the Second Amendment Preservation Act as we got ready for and geared up for session this year here in Cheyenne. And if you missed our previous video, that's okay. We're going to kind of recap what's been going on for the last 6-7 hours now here in Cheyenne, because as we warned everybody about going back to last summer, if the moderate rhino backstabbing traitor class in Cheyenne decides to author their own SAPA legislation, we knew it would be terrible. We knew it would be rife with mistakes, wide open for abuse, and designed to protect one entity, not gun owners, designed to protect politicians, because everybody is terrified of the wrath of Wyoming gun owners members in the primaries after what happened in 2018, 2019. And, you know, it sucks to be right, but when you work for as many years we've been involved in the fight for gun rights, it just happens. And that's what we have going on right now. And we're going to break down this bill here in a moment, and you guys are you're going to be outraged when you hear it. But this video is about a separate topic as well, because moments ago, and I mean literally in the last half an hour, Gun Owners of America has come out in full support of this treacherous, horrific legislation. And, you know, Chris, I mean, you and I, Larry Pratt spoke at my college commencement, for heaven's sakes. You and I have been around these guys. We've been supporters of these guys for decades, And we're going to talk about this, and we're going to go over this email here in a little bit. Something's wrong. Something happened to the leadership core right now at GOA, because what they said in this email, they never would have talked like this. It never, ever could have happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's shameful stuff.
Yeah. And I guess we'll probably sit here and talk about it later on in a different video as to why they are making these decisions to essentially follow the NRA's playbook on calling the shots from afar and pretending that they know better than the locals on the ground and the people that have put in so much work to try to improve the legislature. But we're going to read this email. I don't know, Aaron, did you plan on reading the whole email all the way through?
I'm going to read the key sections of it. But before we get to the email, we need to recap the problems with this bill. And guys, we have done an excellent analysis of this. We already have that sent out to every member of the House and Senate and to all of our members on our Facebook page.
Well, that's the really important thing here, is that this notification that was pushed out to the legislature only a few hours before Gun Owners of America came in and totally destroyed all the work that's being done here and totally stabbed gun owners in the back. So, I mean, literally, Wyoming gun owners is doing their job, and then all of a sudden to have to have a knife planted in their back. Let's just dig into it.
Yeah, we're making some big claims here, and some of you guys might be saying, I've been involved in this organization for 20 years. You better put up or shut up. We're about to put up right now. Chris, put that screen up there for a moment, and we're not going to read our analysis.
Problems with that right now. It's just
okay. We're not going to read our analysis verbatim here, but there's 4 or 5 big problems here. Everyone knows that the core of SAPA, which we passed, the American Firearms Association and our state affiliate in Missouri passed last year, the nation's leading SAPA law. We had no help from any national gun group, just to be clear on that. The key component behind SAPA has always been citizen enforcement. Citizens enforce any violations of SAPA. And that is what makes it so powerful, because, look, this all got to start back in Obama's day of 2009. And at that time, what we had was gun owners who were afraid of gun control passing what they called Firearms Freedom Act legislation. Wyoming did that, as a matter of fact, that would protect gun owners in the states. The problem was it required the attorney general or the governor of that state to engage to protect you, to protect me. In fact, Wyoming's statute says, and the code section on this is 6-8-405, C, that the state may intervene and defend gun owners. That was the problem. They never did, not just here in Wyoming, but anywhere. And so we all realized in the gun rights community 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that going forward, the enforcement must lay with the people. That's what our bill, Senate File 87, House Bill 133 would do. If
just
any
to kind
department,
just to kind of restate that for everybody, in other words, what it meant is that you're not relying on government to protect you from government, because it happens all the time in legislation, in state politics, where one branch of government never wants to take action against the other because they're always unsure of their footing. Or in this case, relying on the government to protect you from government is ridiculous, because it's not the government at that point that's getting its rights trampled. It's the citizen. So any SAPA bill that relies on government to protect you from government is missing the whole freaking point, and it's rejecting the lessons that have been learned in the last 10 years.
And so that's what our legislation does. Senate File 87, House Bill 133. Unfortunately, this morning, earlier today, Senator Larry Hicks, and just for those who forgot, Larry Hicks is a guy who ran the kill amendment on SAPA last year.
Right.
Larry Hicks is a Senate vice president. He has killed gun-free zone repeal bills for years. He killed SAPA last year, and he is the tip of the moderate spear in the Capitol, killing gun bills every year. So this is who Gun Owners of America goes to for their bill sponsor here in Wyoming. And today they file Senate File 102. And whereas ours is citizen enforcement, theirs has government enforcement. And as Chris just said, that will never happen. Ours, number 2, has $50,000 civil penalties. Theirs have criminal penalties only. And again, that might sound great to some people, but the reality is no county attorney, no DA, no county prosecutor of any kind anywhere in Wyoming will drag their sheriff or city police departments into court. Because it will never happen.
These guys,
all of them work together 5 days a week. And on the weekends, they're out playing golf. They're out goofing off. They're out riding four-wheelers. They're out shooting guns. These guys are friends. Not to mention,
in this situation, the penalty, the award for the violated would go to the state rather than to the individual who had their freedoms crushed. Am I correct in that, Aaron?
Well, yeah, there is no real civil aspects hardly here at all. $1,000 fine, but the real thing here is the criminal side, and that's the whole point. You have no enforcement from the citizens and no major civil penalties to serve as the enforcement, the positive reinforcement to remind Wyoming law enforcement agencies not to violate SAPA. And that's kind of something that's easy to grasp, I think, for a lot of people, but this gets much more devious, because the third problem with this bill is the wide carve-outs that were made by Senator Hicks and a bunch of rhinos in the state capitol for federal task force work. Now, I want to be very clear what I mean by this. What they did, and this is for those who are looking this up online at Senate File 102, this is on page 2 under section 6-14-203. And what it says is that political subdivisions in the state, police departments, sheriff's departments, state troopers, are prohibited from using personnel or funds given them by the legislature of Wyoming or that in any other way originated here in Wyoming. They may not involve those entities, those resources in enforcing federal gun control. Folks, this was deliberately, intentionally, and by design written to say, so as long as the federal government comes in here and funds your work, you may seize and confiscate every single firearm you want in the state. And that is exactly how the federal government has been getting around civil asset forfeiture laws. And that's exactly how they intend to get around state preemption of federal tyranny. They're going to go into the Cheyenne PD with an ATF task force. They're going to hold a check in front of them for $1 million or $500,000 or whatever it is. And they're going to say, if you can loan out 6 or 8 of your officers to our ATF task force, then your department is not working for the Cheyenne PD. They're working for Uncle Joe. And as such, the prohibitions contained in 9-14-203 do not apply. And then on top of it all, Chris, as you know so well, they will then give them most of the time 80% of whatever cash they also seize as part of these federal task force. The entire thing is designed to give a carve out to let China Joe Biden basically buy the use of Wyoming's law enforcement community, which would totally violate SAPA law. It's treachery.
Did you hear that, everybody? The real SAPA bill that we just introduced would prohibit the commandeering, the use of state and local resources, law enforcement officers, cops, you name it, from participating in this stuff at all. What this compromised bullshit version, Senate File 102, does is it end runs right around that and says, oh, they just can't use any state or anything that originated from the state. But if the federal task force comes in, the federal government can still use all of the local law enforcement officers that it wants. It just has to pay for all the equipment, all the gear. And guess what? Now all of Wyoming's cops are once again enforcing Joe Biden's gun control agenda, just as federalized law enforcement officers. And that's one of the most egregious portions of this. The nefariousness is awful. It's terrible. And shame on you. Shame on you, Eric Pratt. Shame on you, gun owners of America, for doing this, for signing off on this, and for giving cover to these people. Shame on you. Shame on you. But this idea that we would federalize law enforcement, local and state law enforcement, to enforce China Joe Biden's gun control
under this White House of all times.
Unbelievable. And you know what? I tell you what, Larry Pratt, Eric's dad, he never, ever would have signed off on this. He never would have. And that's what's so awful to see what's going on here. And I guess we're getting off the talking points of what's wrong with the bill.
Well, it's all contained in the ongoing conversation here. The next big and final, frankly, big policy disaster that was intentionally codified into this bill draft, Senate File, what's the number, Chris? 102. 102.
Yeah.
The last thing here, folks, is that you're going to hate this. You're going to absolutely hate this. Our SAPA bill, which is the best draft you'll ever see here in Cheyenne, covers every single conceivable firearm, ammunition, or accessory that you happen to own that touches on the Second Amendment. What they have done with this bill draft by linking it to Code Section 6-8-405B is linking it only if your gun or bullet or accessory was manufactured here in Wyoming. I'm going to be I'll read this verbatim. This is the code section. Any agent, official, or employee of the U.S. government who enforces or attempts to enforce or act any act, order, law, statute, etc., blah, 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 upon personal firearms, accessories, or ammunition that is manufactured commercially or privately in Wyoming and remains in our borders shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. Folks, if you have a single firearm in your house, a single firearm in your truck, a single firearm in your possession that you bought from a commercial dealer, that you bought out of state, that you had shipped in through an FFL, that you bought commercially, unless you know for an absolute fact that firearm was made here in Wyoming, nothing of these so-called protections in SAPA will apply to you. There is a complete carve out to every firearm that was not manufactured here in the state of Wyoming. So just a brief recap: no citizen enforcement, no civil penalties, no prohibitions on federal task force work, which can bypass our local agencies and our state authority and let them whore out those departments to the federal government. And then finally, no protections only unless your firearm, your ammunition, your accessory was manufactured here in Wyoming. It is a completely toothless old nag that provides no protection to gun owners, none. Only protection to politicians who are scared as hell because the primaries are 8 months away.
So if you own a Palmetto State Armory firearm, if you use like one of their lowers, for example, like I may have done a couple dozen times, to build out a rifle. If you own a Daniel Defense, if you own anything LWRC, if you own any of these kinds of firearms, and heck, there may come a time when Joe Biden's executive orders apply not only to rifles, but he could, if he's successful with these, he could drill right down into pistols. And so if you've bought a Springfield, if you've bought a Glock, if you've bought any of these things, none of these so-called protections that Gun Owners of America is saying exist but don't exist, none of this would apply to any of that, and it would render this entire thing totally void. The entire thing is totally worthless as a defense of people's gun rights.
And that's all the problems on the policy side, which as you guys can see, it's very clear now that this will not protect a single gun owner here in Wyoming, none at all. And it's like that farmer's insurance ad, Chris. I like that old guy. He's like, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing
Good
or
point.
two. Yeah. And I'm not going to make a lot of it, but man, we wrote SAPA in Missouri. We've passed SAPA in Missouri. We have defended SAPA in Missouri in circuit court, now in the Missouri Supreme Court. We're going to have a new lawsuit challenging SAPA, as far as we understand, today or tomorrow in federal court. We know what SAPA law looks like. We know what it takes to survive a court challenge, and we know what it takes to protect gun owners. And frankly, GOA was never there in the entire fight in Missouri over the last couple of years, and they've never set foot in the Capitol here in Cheyenne. That's what makes this email here so repulsive to me. I'm going to read just a couple of key sections from this, but I'm just going to say right off the bat, my hope here is that this email, which was signed by Mark Jones, not by any of the staff at GOA, my hope is that somehow this email was sent out by some guy that has no idea what he's talking about. I hope that GOA does not actually mean this. I pray that GOA does not actually want to endorse.
I think you're giving them a lot of leeway. The shots are called for these kinds of things out of Northern Virginia. And if you've ever spent any time in Northern Virginia, you know that the pressure to cave, the pressure to yield, it's a very intense one. And obviously this Mark Jones, he's not been involved in gun politics in any capacity in his life. I mean, up until this point, at any meaningful level.
That's what's so embarrassing.
Yeah. So this stuff is coming from on high. It's quite frankly, and I hate to say it like this, but this is the NRA's playbook where, they sit there in their building and right across the Beltway, right there in the DC Beltway, part of the swamp, inside the swamp. And over time, their view on life gets warped. Their focus on their principles gets warped. And I guess we can talk about this in a future video, but I definitely wouldn't ascribe hardly any of this to Mark Jones. The guy doesn't really know anything. I mean, he clearly was not involved in any capacity whatsoever.
I've never seen Mark Jones in my entire life after all my years
especially in trying to pass the Second Amendment Preservation Act. And quite frankly, in that regard, like you said, GOA has never been involved in that process. There's only one state so far that has passed this. That's why we're working so hard to pass a robust defense of people's gun rights in Wyoming. We want to start setting precedent here for passing these wonderful bills. But the only state that's got it so far, they weren't involved with it in any capacity. So you can jump into the email, Aaron. I'm sorry.
Here's some of the comments people are already enraged. April Poley says this bill is being pushed by the biggest known rhinos in the entire Wyoming Senate. Absolutely. So and Freddie, longtime WIGO supporter, says what did GOA's emails say? Freddie, it's going to make your blood boil, especially I know how hot your blood gets. It says, dear gun owner, we've been pushing for this legislation, blah, 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 blah. GOA-backed Senate File 102 was just sponsored by Senator Larry Hicks. Just before you read anything else, anybody here in Wyoming knows what that means. Larry Hicks is the definition of the pond, scum, swamp, rhino, traitors that troll our state capitol, and he has killed gun bills for years.
He is the guy who derailed the attempt to eliminate gun-free zones. Gun rights
people. He killed SAPA last year.
But the gun rights community loathes the idea of gun-free zones. We hate it. We hate the NRA for compromising on that going back 30, 40 years. But he is the guy who killed it in Wyoming. The guy.
Sponsored by Senator Larry Hicks and Representative Mark Jennings. I want to be clear on Mark Jennings. Mark Jennings is the guy who ran this really bad version just a couple of 2 sessions ago that left all the enforcement to the Attorney General, the same one that we are suing in federal court right now because of her horrific lack of constitutional awareness. I'll just put it to you that way. And if the AG agrees, then maybe the governor can intervene. And if the governor agrees, maybe they will take action. These are the worst people that you could possibly go to have filed this bill. The bill is called the Wyoming Second Amendment Preservation Act. Well, that's really original, boys. That's really original. Very intentional, and would make it illegal for state and local officials to enforce or cooperate with unconstitutional federal gun control laws. Here's the part right here. There is one other SAPA bill that has been filed, and while it is a good bill, it does not have the legal protections that we need. I just want to remind everybody, there are no citizen enforcement capabilities in their bill. None. There are no civil penalties in their bill. None. There are no ways to stop Wyoming cops from joining federal task force work in their bill. None. And there is no protection for any gun owner who has a gun or an accessory or ammunition unless it was made here in Wyoming. None. Zero. None.
Let me just read that again. There is one other SAPA bill that has been filed, and while it is a good bill, it does not have the legal protections we need. Eric Pratt, Mark Jones, Gun Owners of America, that is a lie, and you know it.
Yeah.
That is a lie, and you know it. And you know better. And you should immediately come out with an apology and apologize to the gun owners of Wyoming, because what you're saying is a lie. It is not the truth. It is a lie. It says in the Bible, let your yes be yes, your no be no. And when you say things like this, your yes is actually no. And that's wrong.
And the next sentence is as somebody who has been involved in the gun rights fight for 15 years, has been around and watching GOA, who has been a supporter of theirs for all this time, to see this next sentence, I can't fathom it. I can't fathom it. The reality is that Senate File 102, this is the compromise hoard out bill with Senator Larry Hicks. This
is them speaking now, right?
This is GOA's email that this bill is the bill with the strongest protections. We've already debunked that thoroughly. That has the greatest chance of passing the Wyoming legislature.
Oh my God.
There was a time not long ago when GOA would have put their foot down and said, we will never compromise. In fact, as I remember, Chris, it's built into their organizational motto that they would never compromise. They would never compromise. But right here has the greatest chance of passing the Wyoming legislature. Folks, this is very easy for me. I could draft legislation in 5 minutes that would pass through Cheyenne and pass Governor Gordon's desk immediately. That's not hard, because all you do is draft a piece of trash, a crap sandwich, and say, pass this. And that's easy to do. Everybody who was involved with WIGO back in 2018 with Stand Your Ground law, you guys remember that. It was a bare knuckles brawl. It was a street fight every single day for 24 legislative days in Cheyenne. We beat on people's asses politically for 24 days straight. We were challenging the governor. We were attacking Senate leadership. We were throwing down with Drew Perkins. We got called into Eli Bebout's office and told to sit down and shut up, or they were going to call the police. We fought like dogs. You guys helped us fight like dogs to get the best Stand Your Ground law that has at that time ever been passed into law. But I can tell you right now, the first week. We could have made the deal that they wanted us to make, write the compromise bill they wanted us to write. We could have passed it in the first week, and we could have all gone home. We could have all gone home. But it's always that way in state capitals. It's always that way in state capitals. There's always pressure to compromise. There's always a request to water down your bill, and the deal is always the same. If you do this, we'll pass your bill tomorrow. We'll sing your praises. Then you sing our praises at election time, and it's all good. It's all good. To see this now, to see GOA now come out there and say, this is the bill with the best chance of passing, it is anathema to everything they have stood for, and it's anathema to everything that it takes to fight hard and get stuff done in a state capital. If we had adopted this stance, folks, at WIGO in 2011, when Senator Bouchard ran WIGO, we never would have passed constitutional carry. If we'd acted this way in 2018, we never would have passed stand your ground law. All the gains that we have made for gun owners never would have happened if we played like this.
Yeah. You know, it's hard enough in this fight for freedom that we are all engaged in at so many different levels. It is so very hard to keep the core nucleus of gun rights activists who they know exactly what's on the line and why they're fighting for gun rights. They know that the Second Amendment is the one thing that protects all of our other freedoms. And so they fight hard. They fight aggressively for it. It is very hard to keep everybody together and on the same page. It's very hard to fend off the attacks and the efforts to water down and compromise that always used to come in from the NRA at the federal level. I know the NRA has been pretty good in Wyoming so far. I think they've been working pretty well with you, Aaron, out there. But for something like this, where Gun Owners of America, who enjoys a certain reputation, for them to come in and deliberately divide the best in the gun rights community with a total crap bill, disguised with a bunch of outright, total and blatant falsehoods, for them to come in and divide the gun rights community now on the precipice of something big and wonderful and tremendous. And believe me, I believe very much so that you can get real 100% SAPA, just beautiful SAPA on the books in Wyoming this legislative session. If the gun rights community, the activist community, could stay focused and united, just like they have been so far, for so many years, with constitutional carry, with stand your ground, with all the efforts that WIGO has spearheaded, for them to come in and do this now I try to get the words to come up here, but like a tremendous shame. Doesn't even get close to what I want to say about this whole thing. It's a total shame. It's a betrayal. It's a betrayal of everything that we all hold dear.
And it gets worse. That may be kind of hard to fathom. They talk about the budget session, the short time frame, which that's what WIGO. They learned that from watching our videos and reading our emails. But then later on, towards the bottom, this is what's really tough. It says, we must guard against efforts to weaken or undermine this legislation while passing a law that only provides marginal or weak protections. That is the very definition of this bill. No protections. And this last sentence will make your blood boil. Gun owners of America will not accept a weak bill just to make citizens think they are being protected. The hypocrisy is so thick, I can't even describe it in words. The hypocrisy is so deep. Gun owners of America will not accept a weak bill just to make citizens think they are being protected. That is exactly what this bill does. It makes everybody think they're being protected, and it's not going to save a single person. You know, you guys, you know how I know this? I mean, first of all, it's because I've never heard of Mark Jones. I've never met Mark Jones. I've never seen Mark Jones in the Capitol. The guy's never been involved in elections, primaries, and generals, and lawsuits, nothing. But it's not just that he's an idiot. You can tell this when you see the names on the bill. It's just very simple. There are lions for freedom here in Wyoming. There are champions. There are just stalwarts. I'm not just talking about Anthony Bouchard. It's all the guys that co-sponsored our bill just in the last couple of days. I'm discussing Tom James, who's commenting right here in the comment section right now. Senator Tom James. Senator Troy McEwen, one of the best. Senator French, one of the best. Senator Salazar, one of the best. All of these guys sponsored this bill, our bill. Bob Worf in the House, a champion for freedom, stood there with me as a lobbyist back in 2018, and he fought by my side for 24 days straight to pass Stand Your Ground law. Thank God he's now in the House here in Wyoming. He is a champion's champion. Dan Larson, one of the single most ballsy guys in the entire House. When Speaker Harshman was tanking gun-free zone repeal legislation 2 years ago, it was Dan Larson who stood up on the floor and forced a record roll call vote against his own party. And it was that roll call vote that allowed WIGO to expose dozens of anti-gun Republicans in 2020. These are some of the champions, and there's more. I'm missing a lot of names, I have no doubt. And for those who are watching, if I missed your name, I apologize. There are real champions in our state when it comes to gun rights. We work with them every day. They're commenting in the feed right now. And when you see none of their names on this bill, you know it's a joke. When you see all of their names on our bill, you know this is and always will be the gold standard. And you know why? It's because we don't have an office 2,000 miles away right outside of Washington, D.C. We are on the ground in Cheyenne, on the ground during session, during the elections, during lawsuits, leading this fight. So we actually know these guys.
Well, and let's not forget, like WIGO, this Facebook page is the largest gun rights page, obviously, in the state of Wyoming. And, we are constantly getting and receiving feedback. We're talking to people. We're answering the phone. We're having conversations with people. And, you cannot replace that. You cannot replace the spirit and the zeal of what it means to be a Wyomingite by simply just teleporting in and not getting that local feedback. If you don't know the people on the ground, how in the hell can you possibly represent them? We interact, we talk with people, we interface with people every day. And everyone knows. I mean, everyone knows that there's no mystery here. The media alerts, there's hundreds of them. Everyone knows what WIGO members do. It's what we do. We beat people's political asses all session long. And then if our bills die, we're right back there in the primaries and we beat them all over again, their careers with information, and we expose their betrayals. And when WIGO wins our federal lawsuit very shortly, we presume, in Casper, and we are free to do it again in 2022, we're going to be right back to doing what we're the best at. And I can assure you at that time, we're going to have nobody from the federal side, no one from GOA doing a damn thing. That's just how this game is played. Because the reality is, if you're in D.C., it's kind of easy to do that level of politics. You have a staffer, they go to Capitol Hill, they meet with one guy, they get a picture, and your email list goes out to the country, and you just do an email. To do state operations is a lot more work. You have to actually be in the Capitol. You have to actually go and draft legislation. You have to figure out who's good, who's bad. And then you have to come back at election time and hold people accountable. And at the end of the day, that might just maybe make people angry with you. And for many organizations, they can't stand the thought of that. And of course, as you guys all know, WIGO revels in the tears and the hatred of the moderate rhino backstabbers in Cheyenne. Because frankly, you guys have been cutting their political heads off for cycle after cycle after cycle. And again, once that lawsuit is behind us,
We're going to do the same thing in 2022. So, guys, this is where we are right now. We have a horrific bill,
What a shame.
a treacherous, intentionally treacherous bill that provides no protection to gun owners, that we can easily document in the code, very simple, and it's being pushed by the worst people in the legislature. It should make you angry. It should make you outraged. It should make you utterly just rage that you're being fed this crap from gun owners of America. That would never have happened 10 years ago. That would never have happened 10 years ago. And the fact that it's happening now during this shortened budget session, as you said, Chris, there's this intentional effort to divide the gun rights community around a bill that they know is terrible, treacherous legislation. It is shameful conduct. Folks, just to be clear on this, we're not going to back down from this one little bit. And anybody, and I mean anybody or organization who comes into Wyoming trying to destroy SAPA will get the full measure of our resolve. And I'm just going to have one final closing note here to all the politicians who are going to be watching this and already are watching this. I don't mean Tom James. He's one of the good ones. For all the rhinos who are watching, if you think for a moment that these guys, you're going to meet Mark Jones this session. You're going to see he's a garble-mouthed, moron who can't even formulate sentences properly. If you think this group from 2,000 miles away with this guy who's 5 seconds old in his political career is going to give you guys the cover that you're going to need from Wyoming gun owners, with all of the misery we have inflicted on anti-gun rhinos year after year after year with this trash bill, good luck. Good luck. It's going to hurt. Guys, that's what we have time for right now. Share our video. Fire off your email. Demand action on the real SAPA legislation, Senate File 87. We'll keep you guys informed. Take care.